Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich, and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram primarily. Just search for the Hard Compound on any of those, and you will find us. We are here to share our love of motorsport. That's why we're here, and we do this in the form of 3 articles every day here in the UK, morning, lunchtime, and evening, about motorsport from across the spectrum, from F1 to IndyCar to touring cars, GT racing, rallying, bikes, and anything else that we can shake a stick at, really. So do come along and join us for the fun. We'd love to have you on board. As I say, just give us a search, The Hard Compound, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on YouTube as well, where these live interviews are streamed live, just as this one is. Excuse me. And they're automatically saved in the video section on Facebook and the live section on YouTube. We've done nearly 150 of these. I'm not going to name all the guests because that would take a while. But we've had some fantastic guests. We've been very fortunate. The likes of Mr. Mario Andretti. We've spoken to Mr. Jackie Ickx and Hans Stuck and Brian Redman, Chip Ganassi, Will Power and Alex Palou and Ari Lyndike, Danny Sullivan, Stefan Johansson, David Brabham, Emanuele Pirro, Takuma Sato, Carl Wendlinger, Siegfried Storr just last week, and most of the British Touring Car Grid, and the Mini Challenge guys as well. And we've spoken to some legends from the Touring Car Championship, such as Jason Plato, Frank Sintner, Ivan Muller, Gabriele Tarquini, Steve Soper, Rob Gravitt, and many, 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 many more. And we've got another terrific guest joining us this evening from her car in a slight change of plan due to the beautiful traffic issues that we have in the UK. But we are here for it, and she has raced in the W Series, in the Porsche Sprint Challenge, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. She's raced in the Nürburgring, the Nürburgring Langsstrecken-Series, and much, much more. Quite a journey crammed into a short space of time, and we're going to bring her in right now. So please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Caitlin Wood.
Hello. How are we doing?
Good evening. Yeah, yes, not too bad. Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. We're getting through it.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, well, as we can see, you are in your car. We're obviously out on the road, and time has caught up with travel and whatever. So thank you for pulling over and sticking to the time slot. It's much appreciated.
That's all good. No worries. We got to chat, so we got to chat.
Absolutely. Yes, we're here to talk motorsport. Obviously, folks, if the signal does drop in and out, we can blame the great British weather for that. Even in summer, it's shocking. But no, thank you very much for coming on. Guys, if you have any comments or questions, do put them in the comments section. And we'll try and work them in. Or if you want to have a chat amongst yourselves, then please do. Yes, great to have you all on board. There's a few people tuning in already. Evening, folks. But yeah, firstly, Caitlin, apart from being stuck in your car, how's everything going?
Good, thank you. Typical. In fact, to be fair, it's not been too bad lately. I can't complain too much. I like the sunshine. But no, we're doing good. Trying to go racing like most people in most championships. And we just keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll come to this season shortly because, like so many others, the budget has been an issue, hasn't it? And it always is, and it's money's always talk loudest, and these days it's screaming, isn't it? It's kind of difficult to go racing, but it's been quite. The racing that you have done has been quite eye-catching, as we know, with the sponsor and the livery, which we're going to come to this year very soon. But I guess the best place to start is right at the start. Obviously, you're from the other side of the world, there out in Australia, New South Wales. Yep. Where did the love of motorsport come from?
I guess it came from sibling rivalry. I guess is the best way to explain it. There's quite an age gap between myself and my brother. So he's about 12 years older than me. So by the time I was already born, he was karting, and I was lucky enough to grow up around it. So on my 7th birthday, I'd been harping on at my dad for years, wanting to go karting, get my own go-kart, have my own stuff. I was lucky enough to get my own go-kart, and my dad and my brother took me out to our local kart track, which is Newcastle Kart Club back home in Australia. And I didn't make it past the first corner, straight in the gravel trap. So my poor dad had lots of things to do after me.
That's a textbook start.
Yeah. But I guess, I loved it. And from that day, I've literally never not been involved in motorsport, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Most people just my dad and other people with you, and we'd go to club meetings and we'd travel up and down Australia on weekends to go karting. And it was a family hobby to begin with. And I guess ultimately the older I got, the more I realized that this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. And I'm not too bad either. I could give it a go. And I wanted to kind of follow that route. So yeah, I guess that's where it all officially started. And I was just, I was lucky enough to be able to do that with my family and kind of find that passion. And, I was just allowed me to kind of pursue that as well.
That's fantastic. It's always nice to get the family involved with it. Sometimes whether they want to be involved or not,
Yeah.
it's the necessity, isn't it? And obviously, just as a Brit, I mean, just the thought of you guys chucking your stuff in the back of a ute and just going off and karting—that's kind of cool. we don't have utes over here. We need them.
I know. You definitely need more utes. You guys just chuck it in a van. You need a ute. You need to put it in a ute.
Yeah, I kind of, like a white transit van doesn't quite look as good.
Not the same appeal. Not as good. Not as good as a Hilux.
Absolutely, yeah. Nothing against transit vans, by the way, if you have one. But no, that's cool. And I guess the more you went karting, you enjoyed it. You got a bit more competitive, and results improved, things like that. When did you first start looking at moving into cars? When did things get really serious? When the money started to ramp up?
Yeah, one way to put it. I guess when I was roughly around the age of like that 12 to 14 mark was when it's like, right, okay, Dad, I really enjoy this. Not only do I enjoy it, but be better. And you got to compete against the best. So he was never ashamed to just throw me in the deep end in the most competitive championships that we could find and just be like, try and swim. Good luck. And that's just kind of what I grew up with. And I'm really grateful for that looking back on it, because the experience you gain from just going in and giving it a go and the confidence, I guess, in the long run you get from just walking into any situation and just being willing to give it a crack is, worked a long time. But yeah, ultimately I was 15 when I first stepped into Formula Ford. And it was a similar kind of progress in terms of how I got into karting. My brother had actually done Formula Ford quite a few years before I did. So the car was still at home in the shed, kind of in a million pieces, because I was like, Dad and Luke hadn't put it back together yet. So it was just kind of there for a while. And I guess, 5-6 years later, I come along, and it was one afternoon, me and Dad were out in the shed. And I just remember I had the confidence. I was like, Dad, when's it my turn? When can I drive this thing then? Luke got to do it. Why can't I? And I remember Dad looked at me and he's like,
Gutted.
Like the look on his face was like, oh shit, not again. But he thought about it for a while.
Like,
and then
really?
Yeah. He gave me an ultimatum and he's just like, okay, well, if you can put it back together, then you can race it. And I thought about it for a minute and I was just like, can't be that hard. All right, I'll give it a go. Why not? Okay, handshake. And so those summer holidays, which is our Christmas time in Australia, I just spent that putting the Formula Ford back together with Dad. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a mechanic. Well, I stay in the car, but I did not know what I was doing. For doing it, but it was just the fact that I was there with Dad every day, willing, I showed that I was willing to try and do this together. And then ultimately it was really cool. We took it racing, went on our first test day, and then we took our own Formula Ford that we kind of put back together ourselves. We took it racing, and that's ultimately how I made that progression into race cars. And it's really cool because Dad and I always look back on that and we're like, if that wasn't in the shed, would I have ever progressed? Would I have ever kind of, traveled down the motorsport route as far as I have? So it's really special to do it that way. The car the Formula Ford we built was a Spirit, so it was an 06, and I was racing in like 13, 14, so it was quite a few years old by the time I came around to use it. So we used it as a development car for me to, because obviously I didn't have my driver's license, so I'd never driven on the road before. I had driven a Formula Ford, and we used that as a progression and to get myself into race cars. And then afterwards we went into a race team with Synergy Motorsport with a updated Formula Ford at the time.
Wow, that's so cool. Just putting together, an old car essentially, and just going racing. I just think that's the best way to do it. And obviously you can't go straight into a team straight away, but to have the car there, rebuild it, get out there and go is that's fantastic.
Get your hands dirty. It was really nice. Like, you look back at it, my dad was my mechanic, my brother was my engineer, and we'd just be us three and off we go, and we'd just give it a crack. And we entered into state titles, so obviously Australia's in state, so we were New South Wales, and we'd go compete at those races just so I could get experience of how to do a start and how it was. For that,
that's brilliant. What a great way to start. And I guess, as you touched on there, it was just about kind of learning and learning how to go racing rather than setting yourself any targets of results or anything. It was just a case of, let's just go racing, and if we get good results, then great, that's a bonus. When I did see though some of the was it where were you? I said when you've done a few races in the state championship, this was the New South Wales championship, you did a few in the Victoria one, I think, from what I could
we did a bit of both.
But then you ran 3 races in the full Formula Ford Australia series. Did that feel like a big step up in terms of who you were racing against?
Massive. Because
I mean,
boys,
given that the states you have in Australia aren't small, I mean, they're kind of, there's plenty of people that can race across a state because they're enormous. But going to national level must have been a big step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember it was alongside the V8s as well. So, you've just gone into a massive race weekend. Everything that comes with it. It was, it was massive for, little old Caitlin. And for us, it was just experience. I think for a lot of people, it, probably looked out of place or whatever, because we were at the time just little privateers, and I was just there to gain experience and learn off the best. And that's what we were all about. Like Dad would always say, if you want to be the best, you got to compete against them. So that's what we did, just to try and gain the experience. And then afterwards, that's when we stepped in with Synergy Motorsport, and tried on results.
Fantastic. I mean, you mentioned about the V8s and supercars. I noticed that on the same grid in the Formula 4 was a chap called Thomas Randall, who's now in supercars and doing very nicely, which is good. And he ran the Castrol livery, which is absolutely classic. We all love that, don't we?
Yeah, it looks great.
So that's that's a pretty cool little link to have there. And
Tom and I were teammates in F4. Actually, so when I went into F4 for 2 or 3 rounds, I ran with his team Dream, and him and his family are lovely, really, really nice people. It's really great to see him doing well.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, he was actually at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, but I didn't know. I was there on the Thursday, and if I'd known, I'd have hunted him down, tried to grab him.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's good to see him off-site step up, through the series into supercars. But just quickly, I did spot actually on the calendar for that first full season with Synergy Motorsport in Australia. You raced at some cool circuits. It was like you raced at Winton. You raced at Queensland at the Paperclip, which is very cool. At Eastern Creek and at Phillip Island. I mean, now I'm proper jealous because Phillip Island has been on my bucket list for years. I quite like the bike racing as well. What's it like racing around Phillip Island?
It is awesome. It's great. I loved it. I think at the time, being young, I didn't realize where I was, if that makes any sense. Like, you don't realize what you're doing at what capacity until you then make the next step up and you grow up a little bit and you look back at it and you're like, wow, Caitlin, that was a really cool opportunity. We did quite a few Phillip Island, which was really cool. Definitely a circuit for Formula Ford that was really fun to race on because you got such good slipstreams and, you know, you're coming over, into turn one and all you can see is the ocean. So, it created really, really great photos, but also really fun racing as well.
Fantastic. I love that. I'm going to get there one day. I am going to get
there. Put it on
also,
your bucket list.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Not on the circuit, obviously, but there's a penguin colony, is there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, literally just like down the road from there. There we go.
Yeah. My parents went and I went, wow, are you going to go to the circuit? And they went, the penguins. I was like, really? Come on.
Good on them. Love that.
Yeah. Hey ho. And my dad's a big bikes fan as well. I was like, Dad, come on, seriously.
Yeah.
Anyway, never mind. No, that's cool though. What a fantastic circuit. That season, obviously, again, it was like a learning experience. But the second season, 2015, I've got here. You went from because you had the Spectrum 12 car, and then you went to the Spectrum 14 car the following year, from what I can gather.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a huge leap forward in terms of your results. You know, you had like 11th overall. You had like 61 points, having got 3. Sorry, the year before. Where did that come from? Was it just having had a year in the series and like a newer car? Did it all just kind of knit together?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just, getting that little bit older, maturing, like, your kids, when you look back, it's like, you're 15, 16 years old. Some people learn quicker than others, and it just, takes time to kind of get it to click into work. And I think that year with Synergy, we already spent a year working together. So I knew Justin, I knew the team, they knew how I worked, and we weren't learning each other anymore. We just knew how it works. And like I said, for me being young, that's where I really learned how to try and be a team player as much as possible. Even though you are your own driver, you've got to try and get everyone around you to not like you, but you want them to work just as hard as you are at the end goal. And so I learned a lot of those boys, and it was really great to spend that time with them. And ultimately I would have loved to have been able to finish that season, because like you said, we kind of hit the ground running. I think the first race at Malala or something, we finished in the top 5. So I just kind of went from trying to get into the top 10 to then we're there, we're competing, and we want to finish well. So it was a good confidence booster, and I think it was just one of those things that it all kind of started to fall into place, and Caitlin started to understand how it all worked, I guess.
Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. And again, I mean, this is something that's come up, just in like discussions today with the junior series we were talking about off camera. Seat time and track time, it's the best way to learn, isn't it? You can look at things and study things and do sim work or whatever, but there's no substitute for being out on track. And that, obviously, those 2 seasons that you had are proof of that, with the improvement, I guess, that like you saw.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think nowadays, not nowadays, but at the time, we always kind of did things as best as we could, but there's always a limit. I wasn't out every week testing or anything like that. We just did what we were able to do. So maybe if I was having a few more test days and we were in the car more often, like that been a little bit see now I would try a whole year of testing but yes, did it in the way we could do it, and that was the best that we could do. And look back, and I was grateful to be able to have done Formula Ford in the first place and have that experience.
Yeah, fantastic, excellent stuff. Was it the following year, 2016, the Australian National Series, I guess, went from Formula Ford to Formula 4. Was that, and you made that switch? Was that the first time you'd driven a proper sort of slicks and wings type car?
Yeah, so I think it was 2 races in Australia in F4. That was at the latter part of 2015 when I wasn't able to complete Formula Ford. So we got a sponsor, and they were like F4, and I was like, I'll drive anything. So we'll go do that. And yeah, that was the first time I'd ever driven wings and slicks. I remember we went into the first race weekend, and I hadn't actually done a proper test there. I just did a shakedown in the car to make sure the seat fit worked and everything. And then the Friday of the first race weekend was the first time I drove it. So it was always a baptism of fire. You just go in and do the best job you can do. And yeah, with obviously then kind of doing selected races, the progress just kind of got better and better, and we just got closer and closer to the boys at the front. But yeah, ultimately that was a very kind of last minute, let's do this kind of opportunity.
I kind of love that. It's like, well, if we're going to go racing, let's just go racing properly. Let's do it. Let's give it a proper go. And I guess you obviously had to learn the car quickly, as you said. It was your first time in slicks and wings, things like that. And again, some cool circuits. You raced at Sandown, and you raced at Sydney, and again Phillip Island, with a best result of 6th at Sandown. I mean, getting the top 6 in your first season with no testing and not really any pre-season seat time, you must have been pretty pleased to get a top 6.
Yeah, we were really happy with that. I remember, I think I can't remember exactly, but I just remember my start being so bad. Because it was I was so scared of stalling. I was not stalling. I was foot to the floor, full power. And then by the time I dumped the clutch, there was that much smoke. I was just sitting there wheel spinning. But I didn't stall. And that's all I had in my head. I just remember that from Sandown. I was like, don't stall. Don't be the person that stalls. But I didn't. I still got just as bad of a start, but I didn't stall. But yeah, no, it was good to be able to kind of hold your own, so to speak. And obviously, the more we went along, we were able to get a couple of test days in and try and close that gap. But it's always hard for any driver, whether you've got the experience in the championship or not, or that car, just to kind of jump in halfway through a season and perform. So, we weren't necessarily looking to. We knew where my level was at that time. We were just learning and taking the opportunity to learn a new category and race swings and slicks realistically. And again, race against the best that there was in Australia at the time, and just do the best that you can do.
Yeah, fantastic. Just a quote though, at the end of the season, I think it was the last round, Sydney. That was was it Sydney? I think it was a street circuit.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you'd raced on a street circuit?
I did that same street circuit in Formula Ford.
Okay.
Yeah, when we did it in our Spirit with Dad and I. Okay. Yeah, Homebush. Yeah.
Are you a fan of street circuits? Because people say, oh, there's too many street circuits in F1 or in IndyCar or whatever. But I love a street circuit. I'm a big fan. I always have been. I used to look forward to them when I was a kid. Are you a fan?
Yeah. I like street circuits. I think, you look at Bathurst and the Nordschleife and all of those iconic circuits, and they're more or less very similar to a street circuit, because if you go off, that's it. You're off, aren't you? You're in trouble. And that's, I guess, what street circuits create as well. There's not as much room for error. You're driving side by side, close to the walls, and it's that risk versus reward. So you're always trying to weigh up what's the better outcome. And I think with street circuits, as a driver, when you get the lap right, let's say if you're in qualifying and you actually pull together that pole lap, or you're fighting for the front, I feel like it's a super rewarding feeling because of the risk that you took to kind of achieve that lap. So I feel like it definitely creates really, good emotion as well from drivers.
Yeah, fantastic. It's what we like to see. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of walked around a couple of bits of Monaco, and it's just crazy enough to think that cars drive around it. So to do it
Yeah,
at
I
full
know.
track on
Yeah,
any
I'd love to
street
do
lap, yeah,
Monaco. Insane.
amazing stuff. Fantastic. So the end of that season, I've got here. It kind of felt like a crossroads in your career. I mean, we mentioned Bathurst and everything. Did you ever look at going down the touring car route, the V8s or the TCR Australia, or which wasn't around at the time, but were you ever looking at that kind of route, or were you looking at single seaters, or as it turned out, were you looking at moving to Europe anyway?
Um, what I was looking in my head, I had V8s. I was like, right, this is where I want to go. It's what I want to do. But then when the reality came around of actually doing it, budget, getting a car, putting the program together, Formula Ford to V8s for us was a massive step. And then it just wasn't feasible at that time to be able to do that. And I definitely felt like I needed like an interim. And like you said, TCR wasn't there at the time. There was Porsche Carrera Cup, but again, the budget for that was a massive step up for Formula Ford. So I kind of felt like I was very much in this no man's land, where I didn't know where to go. And I kind of thought my career was over, to be honest. I was like 18 and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? We haven't got the budget for this. We haven't got the budget for that. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I've got a part-time job. I don't want to go to uni yet. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I was just, I guess, a little bit of fate or whatever, but I ended up getting an email off a German team called Rider Engineering off Thomas Enger, and they were like, we've got a junior program going on over in Europe, in European GT4 with our new KTM GT4 cars. Did you want to be a part of it? At first, when the first email came through, I actually thought it wasn't real. So I was like, oh, I didn't even reply to it. I was like, oh, this is fake. This is spam.
Right.
Yeah, just leave that. And then it followed through with another email, like maybe 2 weeks later. And it was like saying the same stuff. And like there was a phone number this time, there's a website. And I was like, let's do some research. And then, yeah, Dad and I ended up calling Thomas and we had a chat and we're like, oh, this is real. This is real. And yeah, it kind of make the very, very okay. We want to be involved. I think it started in April or something like this. And I remember kind of sitting down with my mum and dad at the dinner table and we're kind of discussing it all. And, it was an honest talk. It was like one of those talks when you're 18 to be like, right, if you want to do this, like this is as far as we can take you. What we'd like you to do, you can race at Monza. There's 5 or 6 races on the calendar that you'll do. You'll race at Spa. Not many Aussies get to do that in the first place, let alone, in politely, a female going over and representing Australia. So go and enjoy yourself. And if you won that championship, the Young Stars Scholarship, you then got a fully funded drive the following season in GT3. And that's
Right.
where we could see progression. And yeah, and, my parents kind of had to take a couple risks to get me there, as I'm sure you can understand where that's coming from. And Dad said, but look, at the end of the year, if you don't win it, that's absolutely fine. We're very proud of you, but come home, go to uni, sort your life out, and we'll go from there. And I was like, okay, no worries. And that was enough motivation for me. So we went over. I went over to Germany by myself and yeah, moved there. And then I won the junior scholarship. So we were competing in European GT4, like in the championship, but we kind of had a championship within a championship. So they were kind of, if that makes any sense. So Reiter had all of our lap times from a race, and we were based on that rather than, because you had to share a car with another driver. If your finishing position was altered by the other driver, it had to be based off your lap times, if that makes sense.
Right.
And yeah, and so I ended up for the weekend. Uni. Didn't end up going to uni.
Right. I mean, as kind of reasons for not going to uni, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty
But
good.
yeah, no, that was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. I was 18. I just got up and left, moved to Germany. I didn't have anywhere to stay to begin with. I was literally just living in hotels or people's couches. And then another young driver who you will know, Naomi Schiff, asked if I wanted to live with her. So we ended up I ended up staying in her apartment, because she worked for Reiter at the time. And yeah, ended up living with her for 18 months whilst I was there. And it was, crazy. I can't speak German. Well, I tried, but I'm not very good at it. Yeah, it was a deer in headlights, but we managed. I did it.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, I actually did German as my A levels up to age 18, and I realised when I got to that, I was pretty good at German. I was pretty good at languages, but when it came to actually, it was the speaking bit was fine. It was what they said back. I was like, I don't know what you.
Yeah, I had no idea. If it wasn't within like the 5 words that I had pre-rehearsed, no idea.
Yeah, they kind of teach you how to speak it. They don't teach you how to listen to it.
Yeah, that's it.
But, I just think because Thomas Eng was the he did everything, but he raced an F1 for Prost, didn't he? And it was that guy. And I was thinking about Reiter Engineering. I was trying to think where I'd heard of them before, and it just literally just came to me. We had like Freddie Hunt came on for a chat a couple of years ago, and he raced with them, I believe, in the European Le Mans series. But yeah, but that's pretty cool, though. You know, cool experience at 18 in Germany and living on sofas and going racing, and yeah. So it sounds like the ultimate gap year.
Something like that. And so like helping out when I wasn't racing, and just kind of immersed myself. I'd learned the more I can learn off the people around me, the more, you know, relationships I can build on a race, get out of them, and hopefully the more they can get out of me as well. So definitely really tried to kind of take that role on for the 2 years there.
Yeah, fantastic. And it was was that the KTM, in the Expo, was it, that you were racing? Because that is, again, that's quite a shift from anything, really, isn't it? I mean, it's a crazy looking thing. What was it like to drive, especially in the first round at Monza?
It was good. It was good. I really loved the car because it was a GT car. Like we still had a lot of, we didn't have power steering, you know, we didn't have, so a lot forward where you feel a lot from the car actually transferred over. It was just bigger and it was heavier. I remember the first laps I ever did, because I'd always driven like a go-kart or a single seater up until that point, and I come in because obviously you have to do installation laps, make sure the car's okay and whatever. I remember, obviously I'm Aussie, so I swear all the time. I was just like, how the fuck can you see anything out of this? I can't see anything. And they're like, oh, that's just how it is. I was like, there's so much crap around me. How can I see? By the end of the day, I was fine, obviously, because I'd adjusted. But yeah, those first few laps, I was like, whoa, how can I see anything?
Like, this is ridiculous.
I've got these small, tiny mirrors. But yeah, no, it was really good. And I think it was, like you said, I wouldn't be as stepping up into Carrera cars, supercars, or anything like that. It was a good progression, and I still learn a lot by doing it, for sure. And then the following year, stepping into the GT3. Now that was a massive step to go, you know, within 18 months. Formula Ford to GT3 in the Lambo was a big step, but also very.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a mighty step, isn't it? And just a couple of circuits though that you raced on quickly in the Expo. Obviously, we mentioned Monza. You raced at Po, again, street circuit. Love it.
Yeah.
I spoke to Siegfried Storr last week, and Gilles Magnus and Tom Coronel and Kenny Atchison, and they've all driven it in touring cars and single seaters and things like that, and they all absolutely love it. How did you find it racing at Po?
Yeah, I loved it.
Cool, isn't it?
It was insane. Same again, typical Aussie. I got out after my first stint and I was like, what the hell? Like the hairpin on the back straight, or leading onto the back section, you're actively like turning the wheel a couple times to turn in, and you're like, how is this real? And if you being in a GT car, like when we actually started racing, if you strategically kind of positioned your car, no one was getting past you. So you really had to take your chances in the areas that opened up, so into certain hairpins where it got wider, to go for moves. Otherwise, there was not well, definitely wasn't easy to get past people. But it was.
Yeah.
That was a really cool experience. That was very, very cool, and something you look back on. Same again, you don't realize the and what you're doing at the time, and you look back and you're like, okay, that's a very cool thing you just got.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of cool things, your first time around Spa, I think, wasn't it? You was in there, which everyone knows Spa. Everyone loves Spa, even with the changes they made to it with the runoffs and everything. It's still an awesome circuit. And I asked this to everyone who's ever raced it, and they all give fairly similar answers. But what is it like the first time you get your foot down and go up through Eau Rouge, Radion, and down the Camel Straight? I mean, because in any car, it looks brilliant. I mean, you could do it on a golf cart and it'd look brilliant. But
yeah.
What is it like? What's the feeling when with the compression then going light? I mean, it must feel fantastic.
Yeah, it's a very rewarding circuit for sure. It's definitely for the brave. You've got to really kind of take a deep breath, off you go. But yeah, the first time into Eau Rouge, you feel like you're just going to run straight into it. It's so steep, you kind of just feel like you're just going to hit it, but obviously the car just goes straight up and you're like, oh wow. But no, it was that was very, very awesome to race around there and to race in GTs, but then to also get the opportunity to kind of go back in single seaters with W Series. That was mega. I don't think there's anything better than a single seater around Spa. That was awesome. And yeah, to be able to kind of have that experience in the GT to begin with was really cool, and it creates great racing. We all know, we look at any of the endurance races at Spa. Spa is a circuit that not only, gives you goosebumps when you get a good qualifying lap, but gives you goosebumps when you watch two cars go wheel to wheel. And that's also what I love about circuits like Spa is the racing that it creates.
Yeah, fantastic. You touched on the fact that you went up into the Lambo, the Lamborghini Gallardo. Awesome car. It's much heavier and things like that. And you got to take it around some very boring circuits like Misano and Brands Hatch. Nice and relaxing. I mean, did you struggle with anything? I mean, I don't like asking drivers if they struggle with things because it feels a bit odd because I'm not a driver and I'd struggle anyway. But going onto these difficult circuits, quite technical circuits, elevation changes, weight shifts, and everything in a Lamborghini, when you've been used to much lighter cars, it must take a bit of adjustment from your side.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And I feel like any driver, they have to say it takes time and it takes adjustment and it takes experience. And, it was a big adjustment, obviously. But I think just that attitude of just, right, let's crack on, let's give it a go. We do our best and we keep going. And that's just what it was. Like, again, we kind of have very limited, testing and stuff like that. But for me, I remember walking into that driver's briefing and I was just like, shit. I'm sat to some amazing drivers. I think some of the best GT drivers in the world, do Blancpain and endurance racing. And you're like, wow, okay, I'm actually on this grid. So just the achievement to kind of be there in the first place was a tick box. But then, that first round at Misano was definitely, we were deer in headlights, just survive. That's what it was about. And by surviving and trying to stay out of trouble, we finished on the podium in silver class, which was in and that was a really great race as well. So it was just like, throw us in the deep end, away you go. And yeah, and so that was a really good start to the season. And then from there, it was unfortunately just not as successful. My teammate had a couple of incidents. So at Brands Hatch, I only did, I think, free practice 1 because unfortunately the car was unable to go after free practice 2 due to an incident. And then we did an endurance race at Paul Ricard. So that's when Thomas joined us because we needed 3 drivers. And same again, unfortunately, I didn't get to race because the car was damaged in the first stint. So yeah, it just kind of became a little bit of like a unfortunate rest of the season in terms of results, but the experience gained to be able to have that opportunity and to be able to compete at that level, and ultimately, same again, learn against the best. I'll never not be grateful for that, to be immersed in that.
Yeah, even if it is frustrating with how it panned out, it's still a great experience. And you mentioned about some of the drivers. I mean, the grid that year, there was like Robin Friends, Will Stevens, Mikko Bortolotti, who's obviously leading DTM at the moment. You got Dries Van Tour, Jake Dennis, Daniel Huncadella, Rafael Marciello, Philip Eng, and Tom Blomqvist on the grid, and others.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite an introduction to GT racing, isn't it? Racing against those guys.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah, there's some good names there. And people don't realise Tom Blomqvist is English. He was born in England, so
there we go.
So he sounds Swedish because of his dad, but no. Anyway, so yeah, just to move forward to 2018. Now, correct if I'm wrong, the season started with the Bathurst, the 12 hours of Bathurst, I think.
Yeah.
I did spot though, because I don't really remember this. I did spot though that you and your co-drivers only lasted 31 laps, unfortunately due to an incident. Did you get behind the wheel? Because it was
no, unfortunately not. No. Yeah, it's Bathurst, isn't it? Unfortunately. We had obviously the opportunity for Bathurst came about. I'm at it because it's Bathurst, it's home, it's everything. We had really kind of successful build up to it, but just normal kind of stuff. Unfortunately, Dave had a bit of an incident coming down the mountain, and he clipped one side, which lost his suspension, and then ultimately he's a passenger from there. So yeah, the car wasn't salvageable to continue racing. And unfortunately, I didn't get to do any racing laps, but it only makes you more keen to get back and do it again. So we went back in 2019 to give it another shot, and that time I did get some really good racing laps, and unfortunately the Bathurst gods didn't like us again, and we were in on the podium step in GT4. We were P2, and comfortably it was going to be a 1-2 KTM, and with 30 minutes to go our engine let off, so our engine let go. So I didn't know what was more heartbreaking, the not driving or the driving and then the engine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know what's worse, only getting 31 laps, or then going so close and then it all going wrong at the end. I always think that with endurance racing. I mean, it's a great form of racing, but if something goes wrong at the start or the end, it sucks, doesn't it? Really sucks.
It's like gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching. But that's Bathurst. It's endurance racing. That's what it's about. That's what keeps us coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've asked this to a lot of people who have raced on the circuit, and it's always a silly question because it's a pretty obvious answer. But what is it about Bathurst? I mean, obviously, it's on the other side of the world for me, so it's even further. It's even more kind of mythical than wow. And it's next on the bucket list, definitely. But what is it from a driver's point of view about Bathurst that makes it so special? Because there's so many fantastic parts of the circuit, isn't there?
Yeah, I think again, it's like that Spa effect. When you get it right, it's so rewarding because you know how close to the edge you were to achieve that lap or that position. And yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted. You really got to kind of make most out of yourself as a driver and the car. And it's fast, and if you go off, it's not going to be a small one. So it's just like a lot of combinations come together. And I think, obviously biased, but I think Aussie fans are really, really good fans to have on the sidelines to get you going. And the support is just unreal when you race at Bathurst. There's not too much like it. I think it's definitely at the top of the list for any driver to get out to Bathurst and do it. But yeah, I think it's just that feeling of when you get it right and you've got it right, and it's going to be really hard to replicate that again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, the feeling when you get it right, because as I said off air, we had Greg Murphy came on, and he's known for that lap from whenever it was, and he said that he doesn't remember all the celebrations and stuff that went on afterwards when he took pole at Bathurst. And then when he watched it back, he was like, did I really do that? Because he said that he couldn't believe that he put it all together around Bathurst. Even the fact that he'd done it was incredible. And then all the fallout from it, just because it's such an amazing circuit. Yeah,
it's like you kind of just zone out, focus on the lap.
Yeah. Fantastic. We'll get there one day. I've heard plenty of stories about the fans from a couple of Brits who've gone out there and raced, but that's for another day. Depends who you're racing for, especially in the thousand.
Yeah, in the day.
Yeah, if you're racing for Holden, there's places you don't want to break down on the circuit. You could get a beer can through your window or whatever. Yeah, fun times. No, cool. So just very quickly, we had Abby Eaton on 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she said she loved her recent time in the Super Trofeo with a Lamborghini. He said it's just a cool car. He said there's something cool about driving a Lamborghini around an Italian circuit that's very cool. How did you find the series?
Yeah, very similar. Again, I think for me to transfer from the GT3 to the Challenge car, ultimately, the Super Trofeo was like a good transition. And yeah, again, I also thoroughly enjoyed it. At the time, there was like 50 cars on the grid. I think it's still similar at the moment. It always creates massive grids. So no matter what level you're at, you're always racing somebody. It's chaos, as always. And again, it's like that endurance kind of racing. So it's just something about it that just keeps it all exciting. And the cars are still very, very fast. Like they're more or less faster than a GT3 car in a straight line, just because they have less aero, but obviously, not as fast through the corners.
Yeah, no, sure. Cool though. Very cool. And again, it's one of the many series I'd like to go and watch somewhere in the sun with a nice glass or something. It just sounds like a good way to watch racing.
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. Just before we get into the next bit, guys in the comments, we've got David Allen and Billy Edgerton have asked some questions. We're going to come to those very shortly, guys. We have not forgotten, don't worry. I did see my friend Chris Josie's tuned in, and he says that he uses you on his Motorsport Manager game as his number one driver.
There you go. So get in there. There we go.
That's it. You've made it when. That's cool. Really like that. Also got to say hello to Sheila Kersley from Kersley Motorsport, the race in the Hyundai Coupe GTO Cup over here. Really good people. Really, really good people. Good fun. And they run in the Junior Saloon Car Championship as well. So do go and check out Kersley Motorsport, folks. Check them Facebook and across social media. Good people. Right. Bit of a plug for them. Good stuff. So obviously the next step, I guess this may have been down to funding and budgets, and which is always the case. W Series. Obviously it's been a while since you raced in single seaters, but as I said, I don't think I mentioned before, we've had like Sarah Morse come on here, as has Sabra Cook and Carrie Schreiner, and obviously Abby as well. They've all said that the draw was the fact that it was a free drive, which is unheard of. And all you had to do was turn up with kind of your race suit and helmet, and off you go. Was that the draw for you at that time?
Absolutely. I think at first I didn't know whether it was real. I think a lot of us were like that. I think a lot of us girls kind of grouped together and we're like, is this real or is this just
This is like
media stunt
someone
or
messing
something?
around.
Yeah, because it'd never been done before, realistically, to that degree of just literally turn up with your suit and your helmet and go racing. And at the time, it was a really big topic of discussion, like should there be a segregated series. It was a lot of that, and I remember, as I work obviously in all this time I'd moved to the UK as well, so I'd left Germany and then didn't want to be at not didn't want to be at home, but I didn't feel like I was making the progress. So a couple months later I got up and I just moved to the UK in the beginning of 2018. So it was kind of same again, didn't know anybody, just started living in a share house. And then eventually I started working at Palmer Sport. And that's where I kind of met a lot of the guys in the industry who I now call obviously very, very close mates. And I remember kind of this all came about and they're obviously on me. They're like, Caitlin, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? And I was just like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I just remember them kind of being like, Caitlin, why wouldn't you do it? They're like, I was like, well, I just don't know. And they're like, well, just give it a go. And it was actually, I call them the boys, but it was like the boys had actually kind of pushed me to just take that step and be like, what have you got to lose? You're not racing anything else. We think you'd do really well. Like, and so, yeah, then I actually applied and, got through. And then we went to Melk in Austria and went through the selection process, which was when it all became real. When you rocked up there, and I think there was like 70 or 80 women from around the world who all raced. That was, to me, insane. It was like super empowering, for one, to have so many women from around the world be there with the same passion, and then you're also competing against one another because a free seat in a Formula 3 car never really comes around. So it was a really interesting dynamic for sure, and the facilities were awesome.
Wow, that's cool. I love that. I mean, obviously, as kind of a bloke who has an interest in a industry dominated by blokes, we can't get our heads around what a big deal that must be, because that doesn't happen in motorsport. You don't get all these talented women racers and other, not just racers, but people around the teams and the crews and everything and around the series. That doesn't happen. So that must have been absolutely awesome. I actually spoke with Natalie Decker on here a couple of years ago. She's obviously trying to find her way out in NASCAR. They just said they're having a baby, which is lovely. Her and Derek. So that's lovely. That's very cool. But yeah, she said that she felt the same thing. She'd been on like the stock car circuits and the short ovals in America, and all of a sudden she's in Europe, single seaters with all these kind of awesome ladies who are going racing, and she was like, "This is nuts." in the best way possible, which might have been fantastic. Oh, I've just seen a question here. Rick Knoll, he says, Caitlin, who's your favorite motorsport photographer? That feels like a loaded question.
I wonder if the answer's in the question.
Yeah, I think, we just have to look at the name, don't we?
Yeah. Good one, Rick.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm gonna check him out when we're finished.
He's really good. As my own little plug, Rick did all my photos from my Barbie launch. So
fantastic.
You can thank Rick for them.
Excellent, Rick. Super job. Good man. That's brilliant. Just very quickly, I did see something though when I was doing my research, and I wasn't aware of this. It's like Charlotte Pointing, the racer, I believe, American, I think. She said that she wasn't happy about. Is she Aussie as well? She wasn't happy with the process and everything. She said it was a bit confusing and a bit nonsense, a bit sort of haphazard. How did you find it? Because I also read that you thought, well, it was as fair as it could be, but she said no, it wasn't. I was just wondering what the deal was there.
Yeah. What can you say? Like it's one of them. You're never gonna get it right all the time. If as a driver or whatever, like what am I trying to say? Like, you're never gonna get it right in everybody's eyes, I think is the best way, is what I'm trying to say. From my opinion, but everyone's going to say it's biased because I got through. You know, I genuinely thought it was really fair. Like, there was loads of different activities in terms of car control. We had a shootout at the end, fitness, media, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure, you know, all of it gets taken into consideration. But, you know, for myself, ultimately, you know, the shootout at the end where everyone's in equal machinery in Porsches on ice, and it was insane to kind of go to this level of skill to try and find out where everybody was. And everybody that went there, it doesn't necessarily, if they didn't make it through, it doesn't mean that they weren't good at it. Like, they're not good. It's just maybe they weren't ready. Maybe they weren't, you know, matured for everyone's at so many different levels when you've got so many people from around the world. But yeah, for me, I thought it was brilliant. You know, it was organized at an actual place where they do a lot of the training for young drivers as well. So it wasn't technically the W series that had put it together. Like, it was outsourced, so that, you know, they obviously oversaw it, but it was outsourced by them. And yeah, you know, it is what it is. Ultimately, that was a way to, in their eyes, to funnel down the amount of drivers they had to begin with. Obviously 70 or 80, funnel it down to, I think it was 30 or 35, 32 maybe. And then that 32 then went to Spain, and we went to Almeria. And then ultimately it was just the quickest 18 that got through, and that was it. It was all on lap times. So, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. It is what it is, and unfortunately, you know, it's one of those things.
Yeah, that was thinking. Again, I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, but she may have felt differently if she'd got through. It's kind of that kind of thing, isn't it? And I'd have been the same. I'd have been cheesed off of that. I'd say, oh, it was the system.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, it's, you know, I don't want to talk ill of anybody. It is what it is, and you know, it is unfortunate. You can't give, at that point in time, they weren't able to give a seat to everybody. So they obviously thought they were doing the right thing in trying to find out where everybody's level was at that time, and that's all it was. It was just about their level at that time, at that moment.
Which is all you can base anything on, isn't it? On track, first time in the F3 car, first time in a while for the in a single seater at Hockenheim, and then you took 10th there, and then you had 11th at Zolder and Norris Ring. So I mean, 3 very different, very tricky circuits. New car, new series, circuits I guess you hadn't driven on before, maybe. You have been pretty pleased with being around like the top 10.
I wasn't, though, obviously. I remember that so well. Yeah, like, I done really well in like preseason testing, but obviously, you know, nobody sees that. So I'd kind of gone in hoping to be in the top 5 rather than the top 10. But obviously I was top 10, and that's where it was. But, you know, like, it was just one of those seasons. I think that obviously the first year of the season, each round only had one race, so you only had one chance. So if there was an issue with the car, or like if there was an issue, you had to just try and redeem that as best as possible and go on to the next round. So that was the hardest thing, because at Norris Ring on the start, I actually lost my clutch. So it was just like little things like that then kind of only gave you the one chance in the race to try and creep that back. But yeah, you know, you make the most of every opportunity. But yeah, Assen, I guess, is where it all kind of actually came together when we started to compete, where I believed I should have been, which was in the top 5, and yeah, keep pushing.
Yeah, fantastic. And Assen is another great circuit. I mean, I've been there to watch the MotoGP, which is just absolutely crackers. It's a seriously underrated circuit, isn't it? Because it's pretty flat.
I loved Assen. Yeah, I loved Assen.
Because you've got that first bit's quite sort of twisty and technical, and then when you get through the right kink and halfway through the lap, you go off around the back, and it's proper rapid, isn't it?
It's fast. It's very fast. I think to do it in like a single seater in an F3 car, was mega. I think it's very suited for that kind of, you know, aero fast circuit. So that was mega. I absolutely loved Assen. You know, it was like that last sector where you more or less were flat, but it didn't feel like you were flat, and you're kind of hanging on like, but you know, you do it. So yeah, it was cool. Really cool.
it's the long right hand, and then you got the straight, then the little right left kink, and then the left, and then the chicane at the end. Just awesome bit of circuit. Yeah, very cool, very cool. And obviously, it was your best result of the season. You know, you took 5th, having qualified 6th, and as you say, that was kind of the window that you felt you should have been in. Did it feel like a nearly season that first year? Because just from watching on the TV, and you know, I was actually at Brands as well.
Yeah.
You were one of the drivers where I was thinking it's just not quite working out. If there was something going on in the pack or something, you just kind of got caught up in it, and it wasn't your fault. And there was like you and a couple of others, and I just thought they're not getting any luck here. They're not got the pace. Did it feel like a nearly year?
Yeah, definitely. But you know, nearly doesn't get you there. Oh, I lost my light. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, nearly doesn't get you the results. You got to get them yourself. And things that were out of my control, you know, like mechanicals and stuff, but that's part of it. But yeah, like I said, I think that the downside, not just for me, but for a lot of us that were in that boat, was okay, it's our first year in F3, and it was just that one race per weekend that didn't, I guess, help give us the experience to accelerate our growth or to come back from mistakes or issues that were had in previous races. So that was hard, but everyone was in the same boat. So it is what it is. And, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to drive F3, like you said, at some really iconic circuits and represent Australia as well. Like I was the only Aussie, which was, you know, cool to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Obviously, the following year, 2020, COVID, tough year for the whole world in kind of all respects, and I was very glad to come through it. Obviously, no racing, but you were back in W Series as a reserve driver for 2021. You stepped in for a couple of rounds, one for our own Abby Pulling at Hungaroring, and then Marta at Spa. Was it frustrating to not get like the full season, not have that full kind of seat time? It must have been.
Yeah, obviously nobody wants to be a reserve driver. But it was like really clear at the beginning of the season that it was like me, Abby Pulling reserves, and we would be on a rotation. So everyone would kind of get their time in the car. So I think Gosha started off the season at Red Bull, and then technically that was me and Abby as reserve if anything was to happen with anyone else. And then it worked on a races. You know, my rotations came on later on in the season, so I was round 5 or something like this, which was Hungary and then Spa. But yeah, Hungary was really like, it was good in terms of where we were in practice, and unfortunately I had like a toe link fail in qualifying, so we ended up qualifying like last. And Hungary is renowned for being very hard to overtake. So it was a bit of like a frustrating weekend, but we came back at Spa and qualified 3rd. So that was mint. That was really, really cool to kind of show that, hey, I'm still here. Don't count me out.
Well, yeah, exactly. Especially with the conditions at Spa and everything, you took 5th and everything, and which was very cool. Just quickly on the Hungaroring, they've actually knocked down the whole pit stuff this week, haven't they? And they're kind of redoing all the buildings there, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Which I got a bit of a shock when I saw that today. I was like, oh crikey, it's all gone. But it's so good to see it's being updated, because it's been there for 30 odd years now, so 40 odd years now, which is cool.
Yeah, that's true.
But obviously we mentioned Spa, and I don't really want to spend too long on this because it's not very nice talking about accidents. There was the big one involving there's like Sarah Moore was in there, and Ayla was in there, and Belen Garcia and Abby Eaton, and I think Beitske just came off. Obviously it was nothing, it was no one's fault. There was obviously something down on the circuit, but awful. I mean, if people want to look online at it, then you can, but I saw it a couple of times and haven't want to watch it since, because we don't like seeing multiple car accidents, especially at Eau Rouge and Radion, when we know it can go wrong very quickly. I spoke to a couple of drivers who were involved in it. Where were you when it all happened? Because it was in qualifying, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was actually the first one through that didn't end up in the
Right.
wreck. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Phew.
Phew. Yeah. I mean, when you drive past them, I mean, I spoke with Callum Arlett a few weeks ago, and I spoke to him about when we I forgot his name. We lost the French the French lad in F2. I've forgotten his name. Apologies. Um, he was one of the guys who drove past it and saw that it was bad. And what did you think when you drove past when you see something like that? What goes through your mind? Is it a case of crikey, what's happened, or is everyone okay? Or
Yeah, obviously, like when it's at that level, when there's multi cars and you're at walking pace at this point, so you're taking it all in. And I just remember seeing bikes get like upside down, just like hanging, and I'm like, fuck, should I stop? But then I'm like, no, like I'm gonna create more issues than anything by doing that. You have to kind of leave it to the people that are trained to deal with those situations. But yeah, as a driver, you're straight on the radio, like, is everyone all right? Like, because at the end of the day, as much as we're all drivers and we're competing against each other, and yeah, okay, we might not see eye to eye one day. We all get out, and there's a lot of respect there, and you don't want to see anybody hurt or anything like that. So yeah, it definitely is, as much as it's not nice to see. It is a part of racing as well. It does happen. That's the downside to it, is the accidents. But yeah, it was an eye-opener, that's for sure. But everyone was, touch wood, like okay within reason. I think a couple of broken bones, but we weren't in serious injuries. And literally half an hour later, it was like, okay, right, get back in and finish qualifying. So
yeah,
that's been able to kind of switch it back on and just be like, right, okay, I think we finished qualifying. I think we did finish qualifying afterwards.
Yeah, I think everyone went back out from what I remember.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. That's good. And obviously, as you say, everyone was like relatively unscathed. I've just seen it was Antoine Hubert, of course, who we lost very sadly. And that was pretty. That was just awful. Thank you to Darren Taylor for that. Apologies for forgetting his name. But yeah, and you got back in the car at COTA, Circuit of the Americas. Circuit I quite like. I've always wondered how steep is it going up to turn one, because it looks bonkers.
It's way steeper than like what you think. Like, you're braking so late because of how steep it is. Like, you're braking so late. You're like, no, I can't brake that late, but you still do. Yeah, it's cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool stuff. And was it you? Yeah, that was when Abby hurt her back with sausage curb, which is another thing. I just think sausage curbs are a silly idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that.
I can't see any point in having them.
No. I feel like it is doing more damage to drivers than not. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's not one of those things. I don't. There's better ways. I think there's better ways.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. Quickly on the COTA though, did you go up the tower? Because I'd love to go.
No, I didn't. Because at the time, 2021, we were still in that COVID time. Like, you're still getting tested. You're still in like your area. So I wasn't. And also I was focused on the racing, to be honest. I wish I did though. I wish I did.
Yeah, so yeah, next time hopefully. Just on the W Series in general, I mean, you kind of touched on it. I mean, there was a thing about the segregation, and then they should be racing. It's like women should be racing against the guys, but then it's the free drive and reconciling the one against the other. I mean, I'm very positive on W Series. I think it's a shame that it ended the way it did because essentially the cash flow. But it's basically helped a lot of careers, hasn't it? And I think that's the biggest takeaway from it, surely.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it was all about opportunity, and the idea of literally trying to change the game in motorsport and giving drivers, whether we're male or female, it doesn't matter, but you're literally giving drivers who might not have the money to be able to compete at that level an opportunity to do so. It just really never been done to that level before. So a lot of us owe a lot of our future opportunities and careers to W Series. And I also truly kind of believe that, W Series was there. It needed to walk so F1 Academy can actually run and flourish. I'm sure, you can tell there's a lot of similarities in terms of things that they've done, and then there's also some differences that they've been able to do to, you it's very, very hard for inaugural championship, whether it is segregated or not. It's very hard for that to continue to grow, and I think unfortunately with COVID and a lot of outside issues, it made it very, very difficult to continue the funding. But yeah, I think we can all look back, and I'm sure there's things that when you look back at hindsight makes a world of difference that we could have done better or whatever, but whilst it was there, it made a difference, and I guess that's an important thing to take away.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of drivers there who perhaps wouldn't be driving or wouldn't have the opportunities if they hadn't been put in that shop window, so to speak.
Yeah.
And everyone was saying, oh, because it failed, and people wanted results straight away, and they thought, Jamie Chadwick should have gone straight into Formula One, and all these other nonsense that was being spoken about it. I mean, that wasn't the sole aim of it, was it? It was, and obviously the F1 Academy, as you say, is carrying it on very nicely, which is great. So I'm looking at the time quickly because I know you've got about an hour to drive home. You went racing on the Nordschleife in the Langsstrecken-Serie. Awesome. That must have been cool when that opportunity came about.
Yeah, that was a bit of a mind-blowing moment. Again, it kind of came through an opportunity with one of my good friends. I guess he's kind of like my manager, Tim Sugden. I'm sure you know who he is. He definitely helped me out with...
He did touring cars, didn't he?
He
back
did,
in the day.
yes.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
I'm showing my age now, aren't I? This is terrible.
Tim's great. I always kind of go to him for advice and kind of helps point me in right directions. And that opportunity came up through him, and I was like, why not? It's another tick box. Nordschleife, definitely want to do it. So yeah, I went out there, got my permit, did some racing, and I actually became the first Australian woman to win a race at the Nordschleife, which was cool. Obviously, in my class. I didn't do it in GT3, but still in the BMW. The Nordschleife is a whole nother ball game. I didn't, you think you're racing at fast circuits, and then you turn up to the Nordschleife, and you're like, okay, wow. It was really cool, and one of them, you're like borderline petrified, but borderline adrenaline rush at the same time. And you're just kind of working your way through that. I think one of the scariest stints I've ever done was, I'm sure for most people, but you were on slicks and it buckets down and all you're trying to do is just get the car back, but you're still about 20 Ks away and you got to finish your lap. So it's, I think for anybody, it's always, you're hanging on for dear life, but I learned a lot by going out there for sure. And it was good fun and I needed fun. I think I reached a point in my career where I was really hard on myself. I wanted results and I wasn't getting what I wanted. And then, I was getting upset about that. And the Nordschleife was able to remind me of what racing is all about. And it's about having fun and, challenging yourself, but enjoying yourself at the same time. I was glad to take a step back and do that.
That's great. That's a good way to go racing, having fun while challenging yourself. Like that a lot. I mean, just quickly, because there's so many amazing parts of the circuit. Everyone knows about the carousel and everyone knows about Bergwerk for the Niki Lauda thing. But are there any particular bits that you enjoy or bits that absolutely terrify you? Because I have a feeling if I drove it, it'd be like Dottinger Hoa, the big fast blast down to there. That would absolutely scare the undercrackers off me.
Well, you end up you end up kind of sitting on the limiter for quite a lot of it, to be honest. Right. So that one's not too scary. I think for me it's the foxhole. Going down and up and into Adenauer Forest. The compression until you do it yourself, it doesn't feel. Until you do it in real life, the sim definitely doesn't do it any justice. It's something. And it's also where I had an accident at the Nordschleife. So obviously those two things go hand in hand.
Yes, that'll get your attention then. For sure. I'm just going to comment from John Cavill in the comments. Evening, John. He says, "We like John. John is a good friend of the page. Been very
John's
helpful."
awesome.
Yeah, he says, "How important has your manager been?" He's obviously making sure Tim gets a mention.
He's making
But
sure
we
Tim gets a
preempted it,
plug.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
We've already covered it, John.
yeah,
Don't worry about it. Tim's great.
yeah, good stuff, John. Yeah, does it. And thanks.
We can't build him up too much.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah, we can't do that too much, of course. But no, thanks for tuning in, John. Good to see your name pop up there, mate. Just want to come forward quickly to this year. You've come and done sadly just the one round at Snetterton so far, but in the Barbie car. Now, I have two daughters, the eldest of which was incredibly excited when I told her.
Oh, awesome.
Said, "Look, someone's driving this car." And she actually said, no, I was going to ask you anyway, but she actually said, "Can you talk to her on one of your talks that you do?" So thank you, Lucy, for doing that. I was going to contact you anyway, but she was well excited. Just quickly, I mean, we kind of saw all the she's 6. Well, she was 5 then, she's 6 now, but we saw when it all came out, the promo stuff, how good the car looked and the message behind it all. But how did it all come about, in a nutshell?
Long story, as most of these things are. Last year I had a little bit of like a health scare. I had a tumor on my head and I had to have surgery.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fine, all benign. It was a quick one. But that kind of put me out of action for a while, from work, from racing, from life. Got me down in the dumps a little bit, feeling sorry for myself, and I go racing. Like, I'm not done yet. I want to make a difference, I think, is kind of where it came from. And then I remember sitting down with my husband Matt, and he's like, "Right, what are some brands that you want to work with? Like, don't worry how out of reach they are. Who do you want to work with?" And yeah, Barbie was at the top of the list, and it ultimately was, let's try our best to get their attention. And so I reached out to them. I kind of convinced them that I would be worth a meeting. Kind of just organized a time slot for myself to turn up. And we put our presentation together. Didn't do it. We literally just ourselves put this presentation together, rocked up, gave them my presentation on what I want to do and where it wants to go, and if they'd be kind of willing to support the Women in Motorsport project that I had in mind. And yeah, that's where the conversation started, and we collaborated that way. And then, after time and development, I become a Barbie Sports Ambassador for 2024. So obviously being able to represent Barbie from a sports point of view, which has been really cool, because they've obviously not really been involved with motorsport before. And so that's ultimately how it all started, in a long, short-winded story. And ultimately, been trying to obviously get more partners and people to get on board to continue to do more racing. But yeah, it's all easier said than done, but I'm incredibly proud of what we've achieved so far, considering it was just started on our apartment floor, and we built it up ourselves. I have to sometimes give myself credit where it's due, and yeah, that has been a really, really cool thing to put together and hopefully inspire more.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And it was the message was that you can be anything, wasn't it? Which is fantastic. Yeah. As I said, as a dad of 2 girls, I'm all for that. Especially within motorsport as well.
I think it's like 7-year-old Caitlin looking at me now, 20 years later. She needed to see herself reflected in an industry, and if I can do that for the next generation, by being that bright car that people need to see, then that's fine by me. I think 7-year-old Caitlin would be very excited to know in her future that she got to drive a Barbie car.
Yeah, she'll be over the moon, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. Just on that tack, I did see a comment from Katie Eames. Evening, Katie. She just said, "Caitlin, you're such an awesome, inspirational driver," earlier on.
Thank you.
And I think that obviously goes through with the Barbie thing, and just like connecting with, well, young lads as well, I'm sure, but mainly young girls, through the whole Barbie thing, which is fantastic. And
Yeah.
very quickly, did you have any input on the livery? Because it looks brilliant. I
Yeah,
love it.
we
It's so cool.
me and Matt, we actually designed it ourselves.
Did you really? Excellent.
Yeah, designed it, and
Brilliant.
obviously it got approved and everything, and Barbie had their little touch-ups, but ultimately, yeah, we designed it ourselves. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's very, very cool. Now, very quickly, you said off air it was just for the first 2 rounds of the season. Obviously, things didn't quite come together. You only did the round at Snetterton. I think, I don't know if the rain had started or if it was just ending, but it was biblical rain at Snetterton. It was, I mean, yeah.
You
You
couldn't
know,
have pictured a more interesting weekend.
it was just bonkers. You had about 4 seasons in about 20 minutes. I mean, like, you needed an
Yeah.
arc, not a Porsche. It was just, I mean, what was it like driving around there on that weekend? Because it just came out of nowhere, the rain, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I don't mind just as long as the weather can make its mind up, wet or dry. This whole can't make its mind up crap is just annoying. Yeah, it was a baptism of fire, which I knew it always was going to be. Same again, like we didn't really go in with much testing at all. Like, just go on, give it a go, give it your best shot. And so, still getting to grips with the car, and didn't run new tires on Friday, so new tires was only for qualifying and just stuff like that, but it ended up being wet anyway. But yeah, it was interesting. It was good. We were getting, making progress as the weekend went on, and obviously we're in the club sport class, so there's 2 different classes in the sprint challenge. There's the new GT4 RS cars, which are quite a bit quicker than the old generation that I was competing in. But yeah, in our class, we ended up finishing on the podium in each race. So we stayed consistent, stayed out of trouble. Yeah, ultimately looking back as a driver, you always want to be one up. You always want to be at the top step. You always want to be going a little bit better, but you gotta give yourself a little bit of leeway where you need to. But yeah, the weather definitely made it interesting. It kept me on my toes, that's for sure. But what would I expect? We're in the UK.
Well, I was just going to say this,
Yeah.
sort of like when you mentioned like the weather not being able to make up its mind. It's like, yeah, that's we have that every day. You never know.
Yeah.
I mentioned I went to Goodwood a few weeks ago, courtesy of a driver come on here before, and the forecast was 14 to 15 degrees, cloud cover all day, so I didn't bother taking a hat. I came home, and if I had this shirt on, you would think I'd drawn on my chest. Yeah, you'd think I'd drawn on myself because the sun was out all day and it was scorching hot, and so it's like, well, just trying to give up with the weather here. But no, it was cool to see the car out on the track. And I remember there's a couple of followers mentioned that they were there at Snetterton and they said the car looked awesome. So
good.
Cool.
Great.
It was nice to get podiums as well, get the results as well.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Yes, I'm just gonna begin to wrap up now. You'd be glad to know with your drive home. A couple of questions that came in. I'm going to go back to. Thank you for sticking with us, folks. I'm going to have a quick scroll here. Billy Edgerton out on the Emerald Isle there. He runs IndyCar Fans UK on Facebook. So do go and check out the page, especially if you're an IndyCar fan. You can guess where this question's going. Would you consider going stateside, given the progress that Jamie Chadwick is making in IndyCar and with in Indy Next and with her IndyCar test? Is that something that you'd be interested in looking into?
Yeah. It's got 4 wheels and absolutely. I think I can't remember if I said it off air or on air. I'll drive anything. I'll give anything a go. I've always really tried to be that opportunity, try and take it, make the most of it. I'd love to race full time in America, like as a season or 2. I think it'd be amazing. Ultimately, like my ultimate long-term goal in motorsport is Le Mans. It always has been the 24 hours Le Mans. I'd love to be the first Australian woman to win it, or be at that level. But yeah, I think what Jamie's done over in America is awesome. I think Jamie's a great driver, great person. I do know her obviously very well from the W Series and our time spent together. So yeah, I'm really proud that she's been able to kind of go over there and make it work for herself, because I think she's doing a really good job, and hopefully we see her be able to make that step up into IndyCar. and be on the grid full time.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely love to see that. David Allen, hello, David. He actually asked a question here just before I go into it. Well, he actually said, what question would you ask Claire Williams? Now, that's very cool because Claire Williams, we know, daughter of Frank. I arranged a chat with Claire, but then something came up and we are trying to work through it. So we are going to announce that one soon, folks. But
nice.
yeah, what question would you ask Claire Williams? Obviously, real trailblazer for like women in motorsport. And
yeah. That is a very good question. I feel like any question I could come up with wouldn't give me the amount of information I would love to take out of her brain. But I think it would probably be along the lines of, what's been able to keep you motivated for so long in can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry, my internet just dropped out there. Sorry, folks, my apologies there.
No, that's okay.
But we're back. Apologies.
It was kind of created in the industry, like what's been your what's been your drive, and being able to kind of represent women at such an international level in a male dominant role, and how you found that respect by doing something like that. Yeah, I don't feel like I could question to an interesting person.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the approach would be anything that comes into your mind, scattergun questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, just a quick one from David. I don't know your surname, David, but you're on YouTube. Who's your most respected Australian driver? That's a good one. I like that.
That is a good one. Growing up, for me, it was always Mark Webber. I grew up watching Mark.
Yeah.
So I very much love Mark. Obviously, massive Danny Rick fan.
Yeah.
I could name loads. I can give you loads. If we talk about supercars, I'm a Shane Van Gisbergen person, even though he's no longer there. But I guess he's not Australian, he's New Zealand. But we take on anybody we like anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And why not? Fantastic. Just say hello very quickly to Chaos Cole down in the comments. So she pops onto a few chats here. She's a young racer from Ireland, racing in F1000.
Oh, nice.
Very, 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 very talented. She's doing very, very well. Again, budgets being the problem. But yeah, folks, go and follow Chaos. Give us some support and some backing. Very, very cool.
Awesome.
She's just tuned in. She's gone Caitlin with the big muscle emoji. Obviously, big fan of yours. This is cool. Right, okay. A few questions that I'm just going to run down here. I think, actually, I'm going to go back to Katie Eames in the comments. She asked two questions that I was going to ask you anyway, so we'll start with those. What's your favourite circuit, and what car would you like to drive that you've not driven before? That's a good one.
Oh, that's good. Favourite circuit? God, it's a hard one, but I don't think I can go past Bathurst. Bathurst, the Nordschleife and Spa are like, top tier. And a car that I would love to drive that I have not yet achieved would probably be a hypercar. The new Le Mans cars.
Shout.
Specifically a Porsche, but hey, I'll take anything.
Yeah, see, I'm glad you said Porsche. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you said Porsche because obviously, as you can tell from the T-shirt, I'm a bit of a Penske man, and they're involved with Porsche. Yeah, that would be cool. Wow,
definitely.
Great answer, love that. Okay, very quickly, did you have a favourite driver growing up?
I have to say Mark. Have to say Mark Webber. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, next one. What's the favourite car that you have raced?
Good question. I think I have like two favourites. If we're talking qualifying, pure lap, definitely, single seater, Formula 3, round Spa. I just don't think you can kind of beat that. Obviously, I haven't driven anything above that level in a single seater. If I could, I would, but I have to go with that for now as a qualifying lap. But in terms of racing, and in getting your elbows out, I would probably go GT4. I really, really loved GT4. I think you can have some really fun racing, any kind of GT category, endurance racing. it's very different to kind of your 1 lap pace. Is way more to the picture than what it looks, and way more that you got to kind of get as a driver. So yeah.
That's cool. I mean, I was going to ask if there was a series that you're going to have a go at, if you could pick one, what would it be? But I guess would it be like sports cars and the WEC? Would that be the one?
Yeah. Le Mans, WEC, IMSA, anything like that.
That'd be cool. Cool stuff. Okay, this is penultimate question. Again, going back to Katie Eames in the comments. She loves asking this question every time she comes on, and I love it. What's your favourite ice cream flavour, and what's your favourite biscuit?
Okay, the biscuit's easy. That's Tim Tams, Aussie through and through. Yeah, if you haven't had one, gotta have them. Tim Tams.
Yeah.
They're like the OG, and ice cream is hard because I love ice cream, and there's so many good flavors. Oh, we've just lost the light again. There we go. But probably I'm basic. I'd probably just go your classic chocolate. Not gonna lie, or like cookies and cream or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good shout. Cookies and cream. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a good answer. I like that. Oh, and Katie Eames just said that Tim Tams are legendary. So she's
there
in the
we
know.
go. Good.
She knows it. She knows it. Good stuff. Okay, final question. And it's an absolute shocker because there's no real answer to it, and I don't know why I ask it, but I do anyway. You've raced against loads and loads and loads of very good drivers. Much like yourself.
I don't know.
And there's so many. I mean, I'm just going to name a few. I mean, we mentioned before, guys like Mika Bortolotti and Dries Van Toor and Will Stevens and Jake Dennis. And you've raced, I believe, in around the Bathurst. You raced against like Craig Lowndes and Chaz Mostert and Todd Hazelwood and Whincup and Davey Reynolds and Garth Tander and all these kind of amazing guys and all the ladies from the W Series who are fantastic and Matt Campbell and so many drivers you've raced against. Is there any in your mind that kind of sticks out as maybe not being better, but just kind of special, or someone that you kind of think, crikey, they're a bit good?
It's such a hard question because there is so many great drivers out there. And like I have been fortunate enough to be on the same grid, obviously in different classes in a lot of those races. Probably somebody like Matty Campbell. I kind of grew up. Well, he raced for Synergy Motorsport with like Formula Ford, and I was kind of a year or two behind him. So we kind of grew up in that progression together. Or Thomas Randall, those boys from Oz who are now doing great things on international and national stage. I just think it's great to be able to support the drivers that you're kind of. Australia is a big place, but we all kind of started in the same area, so it's nice to kind of start there, I guess.
Yeah, nice to sort of, those who have made it onto the bigger stage as well, which is always great.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's awesome.
Yeah, great stuff. Love it. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up. I mean, hour and a half. I appreciate you've got a bit of a drive home as well. So thank you again for stopping and having a chat. Thank you to everyone in the comments and things and the support and everything. Much appreciated. I hope we covered everything. I just want to echo what Katie said earlier on. You're obviously inspiring a lot of people on track and off track, and long may that continue. And we hope to see you at Silverstone, I think is the next one, isn't it? Hopefully you can be there for that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Fantastic. Fingers crossed. Let's hope so. Right, great stuff, everyone. Thank you again, as always. And of course, biggest thanks to you, Caitlin. Much appreciated.
No
and we'll
worries.
let you get on your drive home. Great stuff.
Thank you later. See you later.
Thanks a lot.